Hello my friends. Lesson 2. George Washington is one of the most important figures in American history. He is often called the father of his country, because he played a huge role in the creation of the United States. But before he became a famous leader, Washington was simply a boy growing up in the countryside of Virginia. Today, we will explore his life story in a simple and interesting way. George Washington was born on February 22, 1732, in Westmoreland County, Virginia. His family lived on a farm, and his father, Augustine, owned land and worked as a planter. George grew up with many brothers and sisters. His childhood was simple, and like many children of that time, he helped with farm work. Washington did not receive a very long formal education. He went to school only until his early teenage years. But he learned many useful skills on his own: math, writing, and especially surveying, measuring land, which later became his first job. Even as a young boy, George was known for his honesty. There is a famous story that he once cut down a cherry tree and told his father the truth. This story is probably not real, but it shows how people saw him: honest, disciplined, and responsible. When George was only 16 years old, he started working as a land surveyor. This job took him deep into forests, mountains, and rivers, wild areas of Virginia that were not yet mapped. He walked long distances, slept outdoors, and faced bad weather and wild animals. These experiences made him strong, patient, and brave. They also taught him how to make decisions, organize people, and stay calm, skills that later helped him as a general and president. In the early 1750s, Europe's great powers were fighting for control of North America. The British and the French wanted the same land. This conflict became the French and Indian War. George Washington joined the Virginia militia when he was 21 years old. He quickly became a leader because he was tall, confident, and disciplined. In 1755, Washington fought in several important battles. He showed courage and intelligence, even though the British forces suffered many defeats. One famous story says that during a battle, Washington had 4 bullet holes in his coat, but he was not hurt. His bravery made him famous across the colonies, even though he was still very young. After the war, Washington returned to Virginia and became a farmer at his home called Mount Vernon. He grew wheat, corn, and raised animals. He also experimented with new farming methods and was very modern for his time. In 1759, George Washington married Martha Custis, a wealthy young widow. She had 2 children from her previous marriage, and George became a loving stepfather. Washington was not only a farmer, he was also active in politics. He served in the Virginia House of Burgesses, where he became known as a serious, thoughtful leader who believed in fairness and freedom. In the 1760s and 1770s, the British government began passing new taxes on the American colonies. Many colonists were angry because they had no representation in the British Parliament. They began to say, "No taxation without representation." George Washington believed that Americans deserved the same rights as people in Britain. He supported peaceful protest at first, but as the situation worsened, after events like the Boston Tea Party and the Intolerable Acts, Washington understood that war might be necessary. In 1775, the colonies created the Continental Army to fight against Britain. George Washington was chosen as the commander-in-chief. He did not choose this role for glory. He accepted it because he believed it was his duty. The war was long and difficult. Washington's army lacked food, clothing, and weapons. Many soldiers left because conditions were so bad. One of the lowest moments was the winter at Valley Forge, 1777 to 1778. It was freezing cold, and thousands of soldiers became sick. But Washington stayed strong and inspired his men not to give up. Slowly, with the help of France, the American forces improved. In 1781, Washington led the decisive victory at the Battle of Yorktown, forcing the British to surrender. 2 years later, the war officially ended, and the United States became an independent nation. After the war, Washington hoped to retire on his farm. But the country needed a strong leader. The newly written Constitution created the position of president, and in 1789, Washington was unanimously elected the first president of the United States. He is the only president to receive every single vote of the electors. What did Washington do as president? He helped create the first American government. He chose the first cabinet members. He supported the building of a new capital city, Washington. Washington served 2 terms, 8 years. When people wanted him to stay longer, he refused. He believed no one should hold power for too long. This set an important tradition for future presidents. After leaving office in 1797, Washington returned to Mount Vernon. He enjoyed farming, riding his horse, and spending time with Martha. In December 1799, Washington became sick with a severe throat infection. Doctors tried to help him, but treatments at the time were not very effective. George Washington died on December 14, 1799, at the age of 67. The entire country mourned his death. People remembered him as a man of integrity, courage, and selfless service. Today, George Washington is honored in many ways. The capital city is named after him. His face appears on the $1 bill and the quarter. Monuments, schools, and streets carry his name. He is remembered as a leader who helped create a new nation based on freedom and democracy. Washington was not perfect, he was a human being with flaws like everyone else. But his dedication to his country, his honesty, and his leadership continue to inspire people around the world.